Occasionally, unexpected friendships can form, defying common assumptions. Such was the case when a cat and a dog, both adopted from a shelter, became inseparable companions. However, their heartwarming bond took a tragic turn. Cynthia couldn't contain her excitement. It was Friday afternoon, and the weekend was about to begin, but her excitement wasn't about that. It was something even more special, something so wonderful that it consumed her thoughts. Jeff rushed down the front steps and hopped into the passenger seat of the car. Cynthia wasted no time and started backing out of the driveway. Jeff leaned over and gave her a kiss on the cheek. "You're in a hurry, aren't you?" he asked. "I just can't wait," she replied. "Can you wait? I bet you're excited too." At the animal shelter in Brunswick, New York, Baloo had the biggest cage on the second floor. She was the queen of the place and always got what she wanted. Baloo lazily stretched, tucked her chin, arched her back, and stretched her back legs. Then she let out a big yawn, a yawn that showed how content she was, the kind of peacefulness only cats can show. After she was satisfied, she rolled onto her left side and nestled in a patch of sunlight. Baloo yawned again, closed her eyes, and went back to sleep. 2 cages away, a large mutt named Henry was keeping a beady eye on Baloo. She was his best friend, but that didn't mean she was always easy to get along with. When she slept, he let her be. Barking at her now would just put her in a foul mood, and later, when they got the chance to play in the large courtyard of the shelter, she would want nothing to do with him. He didn't want that. Baloo and Henry had been at the shelter for just short of a year now. Henry was a big dog, a mixed breed. It was his size that had prevented him from getting a forever home. People loved looking at him, and the kids always gravitated toward his cage when they were looking for a pet, but they always left with a puppy or a smaller dog, never with Henry. Baloo was a different case altogether. She seemed utterly indifferent. No longer a young cat, nor particularly old, she had become a resilient and self-reliant feline. Having lived on the streets, she knew how to adapt to any situation. She now had shelter, a cozy spot to rest, and an abundance of food. If she craved affection, there were plenty of shelter volunteers eager to provide it. And then there was Henry, her steadfast friend. Cynthia and Jeff pulled into the animal shelter's parking lot. Jeff chuckled and said, "You should be a Formula One driver with the speed you were going. If you were caught, I'd be throwing peanuts at you behind jail bars for the next 5 years." "Oh, come on," she said. "It wasn't nearly as bad as you make it out to be." She had already turned on her heels and was speaking to him over her shoulder while walking to the shelter entrance. "You coming?" she asked. Jeff gave a few long steps to catch up with her. "Remember what we said. We're getting a small dog, only a small dog," Jeff said. "One small dog. No helium monsters, no hamsters, no garter snakes, no birds, no fish, nothing else. Just a small dog, one. That's it." Cynthia laughed. "Okay, Jeff, I got it. One small dog it is." 2 hours later, they were on their way home, and on the back seat was a giant dog sitting upright with a doggy grin on his face, his tongue hanging out and panting softly. To his right sat a large gray cat with emerald green eyes. She was aloof, like the Queen of England, but she was sitting tightly against the dog. They were a packaged deal, and these new humans better not forget it. 3 years had passed, and the family had grown tighter over that time. There was Cynthia and Jeff, the human component, Henry, the canine unit, and Baloo, the benevolent ruler that kept them all in line. Henry and Baloo had total access to the house and the large garden. They were inseparable. Whenever Jeff called Henry from the front door with a leash in his hand, Baloo made a racket. She continued mewing and kicking up a fuss until Jeff allowed her to join them for their afternoon walk. As soon as he gave the go-ahead, she'd grab Henry's tail with her front claws and scramble onto his back. That's how the neighborhood came to know the family, the 2 humans out for a stroll, the dog on a leash, and the cat riding on the dog's back. Neither Baloo nor Henry had ever been this happy, and Cynthia and Jeff felt like they finally had the family they dreamed of. Until one day, this was a day they would remember forever, the day the worst thing imaginable happened, the day that broke their hearts, the day that shattered their family. Cynthia had taken Baloo and Henry to the vet for their annual checkup. Baloo flirted with the vet for a little while and almost immediately got a clean bill of health. But when he started examining Henry, his forehead creased in a frown. The vet looked decidedly concerned. "Is something wrong?" Cynthia asked. "I'm not sure," the vet said. "I'm going to run a few tests." 2 days later, Cynthia met Jeff at the front door when he came back from work. Her eyes were red and swollen from crying, and she could hardly speak. Jeff took her in his arms when he reached the top of the steps. "Henry?" he asked. Cynthia nodded. "The test came back. Cancer," she said. "The bad kind. I'm crying about the decisions we'll have to make." "How long?" Jeff asked. "Not long," Cynthia said, burying her face in his chest. 1 year later, the dynamic in this close-knit family had changed completely. Cynthia and Jeff were still sad over losing Henry, but Baloo was taking it the hardest of all. She was hardly touching her food, her tail was permanently between her legs, and there was no playfulness left in her. All she did was sleep. Day in and day out, Jeff and Cynthia had tried everything to cheer her up, but it was clear that she was missing her best friend to the point of having a broken heart. Jeff observed Baloo as she lay on her side, watching him without moving. He turned to Cynthia and said, "We had agreed to wait for 2 years before making this decision, but seeing Baloo like this, in so much misery, I think we should act now. It's heartbreaking to see her like this." Cynthia agreed, saying, "I agree, it's for her sake. We should do it now." Baloo didn't show any interest as they left. She missed Henry dearly, thinking of him from morning till night and even in her dreams. In her dreams, they could play like they used to, but she always woke up to the reality that Henry was gone. When Cynthia and Jeff returned a few hours later, there were serious expressions, indicating a significant decision had been made. Jeff had something hidden under his coat, and both of them looked at Baloo with a sense of apprehension. The next few minutes would determine whether this would be an easy or difficult decision. Baloo was curious about their behavior, but not curious enough to move. Jeff kneeled next to her. "The time has come, girl," he said while stroking her head. "It cannot go on like this. You're miserable, and that's not a life worth living." Then he opened his coat, took a tiny ball of fur from among the coat's folds, and placed it next to Baloo. "His name is Pan," Cynthia said, "short for pancake. We want you to take care of him." Baloo was really interested. She sat up straight and started tapping at the puppy with her paws. When she got close to sniff it, Pam licked her nose. Baloo jumped back, arched her back, and swished her tail, just like she did when she used to play with Henry. Then Baloo moved closer, curled herself around the puppy, made sure it was safe between her front paws, and went back to sleep. Cynthia said, "I think everything will be fine now." Baloo needed a new friend, and this is perfect. It's wonderful to see the friendship between a dog, a cat, and their human companions. Do you have a story about a dog and a cat being friends? Share it in the comments. We'd love to hear it. Thank you.